Okay, perfect. We are live on YouTube, and let me record this. And I'm going to start letting folks in, y'all. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank y'all so much for joining us. I'm so excited because this is the first teach-in for our new teach-in series, Notes on the Radical Black Feminist Imagination. And I'm super grateful to have Simone Toussaint, the brilliant Simone Toussaint, lead the first teach-in. So welcome, 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 y'all. And like we always do, feel free to share your name, your pronouns, and where you're based in the chat. We're going to wait a few more moments to let folks pop in. Thank y'all so much for joining the amazing teach-in, Becoming Otherwise, Black Trans Feminist Imagination as Spiritual and Political Practice. Thank you so much, folks from Atlanta, Rayana, Z. Hello, Austin. Hi, Mimi. Thank you from New Jersey, folks from Louisiana, New York. Hi, Nora from the Netherlands. I see someone from South Carolina. Okay. And someone from Philly. I love it. The Bay from North Carolina, Cleveland. Thank y'all so much for being here. Super, super excited. I'm gonna wait a couple more minutes. Thank y'all for being here from New York City. I see it from Puerto Rico. Thank you. England, thank y'all so much for joining. Hi, Ray. Baltimore, Nigeria is in the house. Mexico, Chi-Town. Thank y'all so much for joining us for the first teach-in for our new teach-in series, the School for Black Feminist Politics, new teach-in series, Notes on the Radical Black Feminist Imagination. Hey, y'all, so many folks from so many different places. Coastal Georgia, Joy, thank you for being here. Janelle from Northern Virginia, thank y'all so much for being here. Well, I'm going to get started because I really want to honor our amazing guest time. So first and foremost, my name is Jamie Swift. I use she, her pronouns. I am the founder and executive director of Black Women Radicals. And if you're not familiar with us, we are a Black feminist advocacy organization dedicated to uplifting and centering the power, possibilities, and perseverance of radical Black feminisms. And what we're here for today is a part of the School for Black Feminist Politics, which is the political education hub of Black women radicals, which has a mission, vision, and values of expanding the frame of reference of Black politics through the power of Black feminisms. We're here for the first teach-in in our new teach-in series, Notes on the Radical Black Feminist Imagination. And the first teach-in is titled Becoming Otherwise, Black Trans Feminist Imagination as Spiritual and Political Practice, led by the amazing Simone Toussaint. Before I share Nala's bio, I want to acknowledge our amazing ASL interpreters, Vanna and Kathy, for all the work that they do, and for COCO LLC to continue to partner with Black women radicals on ASL interpretation. So without further ado, I just want to say personally, I've been knowing Nala for a few years now, and her brilliance, her light, her power, and just like her overall just being, I'm so grateful that she said yes to being the first teaching curator for this new series. So without further ado, let me introduce Nala. A multi-award winning and globally sought after consultant, Simone Toussaint is celebrated for her visionary contributions at the crossroad of gender justice, public health equity, and spiritual transformation. Her work has garnered honors from GLAAD, the Momentum Education Pillar of Grace Award, and formal recognition from the New York City Women's Advisory Council for her community-based leadership and transnational impact. A graduate of the Fashion Institute of Technology and a licensed cosmetologist, Nala first channeled her gifts into fashion and beauty. Yet the tragic loss of a beloved friend to transphobic violence in Harlem in 2013, combined with her own lived experiences with systemic injustice, ignited a sacred mission within her. What emerged from that pain was a powerful calling to dismantle oppression and build liberatory pathways to gender affirming care, safe housing, and ancestrally rooted healing. Over the past decade, Nala has served in a range of transformative roles: advocacy coordinator, executive director, public health liaison, and safe sex interventionist within leading LGBTQ plus and racial justice organizations. Her advocacy has focused on HIV/AIDS prevention, healthcare accessibility, youth empowerment, and community safety, always guided by a commitment to cultural competency, spiritual integrity, and the wisdom of lived experience. In 2018, she founded Reuniting of African Descendants, ROAD, a global trans-led initiative devoted to healing, economic justice, and collective growth for TLGBQIA+/SGL individuals of African descent. Under her leadership, ROAD has spearheaded a mutual aid fund serving Black, trans, and queer people across the diaspora and led the historic acquisition of land in Uganda to support housing and sustainability for trans women. Nala is also a minister in training at Rivers of Living Water, New York City, United Church of Christ, and co-director of Flow, Fluid Lovers of Worship, where she cultivates spiritually affirming spaces for gender-expansive communities to worship in authenticity and joy. And so without further ado, I want to pass it over to Nala for her to lead this wonderful and beautiful teaching. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for the introduction. I'm so happy to be in this space. I see that so many of you all are coming from different locations. So first, I want to say thank you for your ears. Thank you for your mind. Thank you for your presence. Now, if you're just joining in, I really recommend for you all to have a glass of water with you, a notebook, pen. There's going to be a lot of information. I will do my best to get it done within 90 minutes or even shorter. If I am talking too fast, for my team, my ASL team, please come off mic and just say slow down. Because once I'm starting presentation, I may not know. So I will do my best. All righty. Awesome. Let me start sharing my screen. All right, wonderful. So again, welcome everybody. I am grateful to be in this space. I want to start by again thanking you for being here and choosing to share this space. My name is Nala Toussaint. I am a Black trans woman of Caribbean descent, a spiritual life coach, culture strategist, and founder and executive director of Reuniting of African Descendants, also known as ROAD. As Jamie wonderfully said, my work lives at the intersection of spiritual practice, cultural organizing, healing justice, and Black liberation. And a lot of what I do is helping individuals and communities reconnect to themselves, to each other, and to ancestral ways of knowing that were disrupted or taken. This work is not separated from my life. It comes from my own experiences of navigating identity, searching for spiritual grounding, and trying to understand where I fit within systems that didn't always have language or space for me. Over time, I found myself drawn to African diasporic tradition, to cosmology, to theology, and to the ways our people have always made meaning, even under constraint. And I begin to notice something that many of the ways we talk about identity today, especially gender, don't fully align with the ways African cosmologies understand the self. And that curiosity became a question. What happens when we look at Black, trans, and gender expansive life, not as something outside of tradition, but as something that may have always been in conversation with it. So, what I'm offering today comes from that place. It's not just academic, it's not just historical, it's personal, spiritual, and ongoing. And I want to say this clearly. I don't come here with all the answers. This is not about presenting something finished. This is about being in process, a process of interpretation or reinterpretation, integration, and of opening space for possibilities that may not have always been considered. So I invite you to be in that space with me, not as something we have to solve, but something that we get to begin. So let's just begin. All right, so let's just ground together. We're going to take a deep breath. Before we move into content, I want to invite us to arrive together. I know everyone is at different time zones. Jamie was filling me in that we have folks from Germany, Nigeria. So, of course, you all having different, you're coming here with all your different presence. So let's try to get in one heartbeat together. If you feel comfortable, you can take a breath. If you're able, you can place your hand somewhere on your body, your chest, your stomach. I know for me, I am really nervous, but I'm excited, but nervous. You can place it on your lap, somewhere that helps you feel present. We're entering a space that holds a lot, history, memory, spirit, survival, and reflection. So if you can, take a deep breath in through your nose and release all the air that you can push out. Slowly inhale for 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Release for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3. Let's hold it. 2, 3, 4. Release. 3, 2. Now let's just continue breathing. Inhale and release. Each breath that we take is a form of liberation. And so why not us choose it together? I want to acknowledge that everyone is arriving differently. Some of us are coming in grounded, some of us are coming tired. Some of us are searching, and some of us are carrying things that may have not have space anywhere else. Wherever you are welcome here. Wherever you are welcome here. Nothing is required of you but your presence. As we move through this time together, I invite you to stay connected to your body, your breath, and to resonate and anything that resonate with you in this process. Take what is for you. Take what is for you and let the rest pass. There's a saying that eat the fish and spit out the bone. We are not just here to learn, we are here to remember. So I want to take a moment to ground us in where we are going, because this is not just a presentation, it is a journey. We're going to move across time, across geography, across different ways of understanding the world. And I want you to feel oriented as we move through it together. We'll begin with African cosmologies, looking at how different traditions understand life, the body, spirit, and becoming, not as fixed ideas, but as living systems that shape how people understand existence. From there, we'll move into disruption. What happened through colonialism, enslavement, and the imposition of Western theology, and how those forces reshape the ways these traditions were practiced, interpreted, and sometimes constrained. Then we'll explore survival, how these systems didn't disappear, but adapted, shifted, and continued in new forms across the diaspora, often ways that were hidden, layered, or reinterpreted under pressure. We'll spend time with our ancestors, not just as historical figures, but as people who were actively imagining new ways to exist under constraint, using their bodies, using their voice, their care, and their communities as sites of transformation. Then we arrive in the present, looking at ballroom, not just as a culture or performance, but as a living, embodied continuation of these traditions, a space where imagination, survival, and cosmology are still in motion. And finally, we'll close by returning to ourselves and to what we're carrying forward from this experience, not as something finished, again, but as something we continue to move with. So think of this as a journey with an arc from origin to disruption to survival to embodiment to now. As we move through it, I invite you to notice where you locate yourself within the arc, or that arc, I should say. So before we go deeper, I want to name how I'm approaching this work because the lens matters. I'm speaking from a Black, trans, and gender-expansive perspective, and also from lived practice. I am a student and a practitioner of African-centered traditions, engaging in ritual, spirituality, and cultural practice. In community, I've been called many things, sister, auntie, mother, and more recently, some begun to call me Ia. And as the saying goes, if you know, you know. I'm also a minister in training, as was mentioned by Jamie, soon to be licensed in April under United Church of Christ at Rivers of Living Waters. I am a root worker, and I come from lived experience of engaging the multiplicity of Afro-Caribbean traditions, not as theory, but as practice. And I want to be honest because honesty matters here. Even with all of that, there were still moments in my journey where I did not feel fully seen, where I could not locate myself completely within the frameworks I was given, even within African-centered spaces. And that tension is part of what brings me here today, because I witnessed both intentionally and unintentionally how binary ways of thinking have been imposed even within spaces that are trying to return to African-centered knowledge, where multiplicity is reduced, where fluidity is questioned, where embodied experience is dismissed in favor of fixed categories. And yet, when we look at African cosmology more deeply, we do find rigid identities as the foundation. We find movement, we find relationship, we find energy, we find transformation. And I have come to understand this is not just intellectually, but through my body, through my journey as a West African dancer, studying with Naima Brown and performing with Cradle in the Rock, through works like Myafa at St. Paul's Baptist Church, where history, body, and spirit came together, and through learning from teachers like Dr. Hanan Hameen, Zakia Harris, and Afro-Caribbean dance with Dana Makumbi Mano, who carries the lineage of Catherine Denham. Through these experiences, I encountered African-centered cosmology as something embodied, something felt, something lived, and still there were parts of me that those spaces did not yet have language for. What happens when we return to these traditions more deeply? What happens when we move beyond interpretation shaped by colonial thinking? What becomes visible when we center energy, movement, and transformation instead of fixed identity? And I want to say this clearly. This is not about me having everything figured out again. I'm going to keep saying that. This is about being in a process of interpretation, reintegration, of opening space of possibility. So this is an offering. It is not a conclusion. It is an invitation to explore, to question, reconnect, and imagine. And in that in mind, let's begin looking more closely at African cosmology. So I'm going to ground us here because this word, in terms of African cosmology, uh,
Excuse me, Nala. Apologize.
yeah,
Forgive me, y'all, but we can only, I'm not sure if the slide, people said that they can't, I see everyone in the shared screen, but the slide, okay, perfect. Thank you so much. We couldn't see that the slide moved, so thank you so much.
wait, so y'all missed the slides before?
Yeah, we, yes, thank you.
Oh, the
We weren't,
gag.
it's okay.
Sure, trial. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, speak up. Let me know what's going on.
Well,
Let
I
me
wasn't
know.
sure. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
No, babe. Oh no, I need y'all to have your things. Hold on. Let me just stop sharing and let's get reacclimated. Yeah, no, 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 no. I need y'all to get your things. Mother has worked on these slides for hours. Okay. So y'all gonna get these slides, okay? Let's try this again. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's try that again. Let me exit. I'm gonna need technology to work with me abundantly. Okay.
So we could see them after you move them, but they weren't just moving along. So yes, we really want to see these slides echoing everybody.
Okay, hold on, baby, because listen, hold on.
I like that. Yes, ma'am. Technology with abundance. Absolutely.
Okay, this is the audience view. Okay, let's see. How do we do this, Lord? I just want
So if
to.
you did it again, it was up, it was up. It was just that the slides weren't moving.
All
Um,
right.
so you had it right the first time. It was just um yeah, Hannah, I thank you. I thought I was tripping too. Okay.
No,
Um,
that's not what I'm trying to do. Wait a minute. Hold on, Kia. No, 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 no.
Thank y'all for bearing with us. It's just
Yes.
technical difficulties we're gonna get through.
And let me just say this. We prepped this way before we started and still um the favor. Okay, enter full. This is audience, enter. So how do I leave without you? Take your time. I love my people. Y'all got my
Perfect. It's right there. Can everyone see this here? Thank you so much. Thank y'all. Thank you, Nala. Please go ahead. And thank you, Vanna. We appreciate you.
the gag is what I'm trying to do is see my part. Yeah, uh-huh. Can y'all see it now?
We can, but it's the presenter. Oh, you can enter the full, yep, let's see, enter the full screen.
Okay, stop. There got to be a way. How did I do it before, Jamie?
It was fine actually the way it was before. It was just that when you were clicking, like we could th- you we couldn't see. So we couldn't see that it was moving. But you will someone thank you, Janelle. You will need two screens to see your own
Oh,
notes.
that's what it is. I do need two screens.
Yes.
Okay. There got to be a way. Content only, side by side, maybe. Okay. That's all right. Let me see if this will work somehow. Is this sufficient enough for folks?
It's a little smaller, but um okay, that's a little bit better. Can everyone see this? It's fine. Yes. Yes,
Hey,
because the slides were just stuck the first time. So you were fine before they were just stuck. Okay.
okay, do y'all just see the screen and not the extra?
Yeah, yes, this is fine. This is perfect.
All right, all right, all right, all right. All right, so we done moved through take a screenshot if y'all need it, what we're gonna go through today. This was what I was referring to in terms of the lens that matters. I highlighted some of the tension for those who are just journeying or coming back. All right, now we're at the part where we're talking about African cosmology. Are our hearts and mind clear? Are y'all all with me?
So now folks are saying that they see you twice and the slides are small. Um,
Okay.
Lord, we gonna get this, child. The devil is not gonna do this to us, okay?
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
The devil is a liar.
So if you go, um,
How about this?
I could also try to share
Can I give you the link to the
please do,
and you
and I'll
share?
do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
let's do that. We're gonna handle that.
Oh yes.
If you could just send it to me as like the public view.
Yes, I
Um,
got you.
okay, we're gonna get this together, y'all.
Thank you, because Mama was working on these slides. Y'all gonna
I
get
know
these
you were.
slides. I'm trying to tell you. All right, share this publicly. Can you stop me from sharing public view link? Wonderful.
I can't do that on your end. You have to stop it on your end.
Got it.
But
Got it. Got it.
then
Yep.
perfect. And then you're gonna send this to me. Perfect. Let me
Let me see. Jamie, where you at in this chat? All right, I'm dropping the link in the chat.
perfect.
Yeah, so all those who are live, go get you some water, get you something. We coming right back in. It's all is well. All is well.
Okay, let
That
me
better work. Much appreciated your dedication. Okay.
okay, can folks see this? Let me see. Okay, perfect. Let me
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah,
okay.
full screen, Jamie. Thank you. All right, so we are now at wonderful. They was the child. All right. Jamie, I think we're at slide. Keep going. Next slide, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe also spotlight me and you since you're sharing, but mute yourself so that they can see the graphics. I think everyone is yes possible. Okay, wonderful. We're gonna go to slide 5. Okay, awesome. I don't see the slide moving on your end, Jamie.
I just moved it. I'm on cosmology, how people understand the world.
Yeah, but we can't see it. All we see is the cover page. See,
Um, this is y'all. This was not. Oh Lord, now you're seeing my other business. Okay, 1 second.
it's the retrograde of it all. It's
It really is.
because I know I got something powerful for y'all, so I want y'all to get y'all things.
Can everyone see this now?
Yes, try to go to the slide before and see if it works. Yep, okay, we're working. All right. Ah, wonderful. Thank you all for your patience. All right, so here is. So I want to begin by grounding us in what it means when I say African cosmology, because this word can sound abstract, but it's very actually, it's practical. Cosmology is simply how a people understand the world, how we understand life, the body, spirit, time, and our place within it all. For what it within it all, it shapes how we make decisions, how we understand healing, how we understand birth and death, and what it means to be human. And when we look across African cosmology, not just one, but many across the continent, we begin to notice patterns. We see that the world is layered, meaning there is the visible world, what you can see, touch, and then the unseen world, spirit, ancestors, memory, and those worlds are always in relationship. We see that the self is not singular. You're not just your body, you are also spirit, memory, and relationship. We see that life is not linear, but cyclical. Birth, life, death, and return. And that death is not an ending, but as a transition. And we also see that transformation is not abnormal, it is expected. People change, roles shift, and life moves. So in African cosmology, the question is not, what are you, but rather, where are you in your becoming? Because identity is not fixed, it is a part of an ongoing movement of relationship, transformation, and unfolding. Next slide, please. So now I want to, okay, let me see, because, okay, okay. Are we on? Let me make sure. Yep, perfect. Awesome. So let's take a moment to ground ourselves in Yoruba cosmology. I want to do this carefully because this is a living tradition. What I'm sharing here is not exhaustive. It's not meant to represent every lineage, to be clear, or interpretation, but it gives us a way to understand how the self is understood beyond just the physical body. In Yoruba cosmology, one of the central concepts is Ori, often translated as inner head, but more precisely referring to your spiritual consciousness, your destiny, your guiding essence. It's understood that before a person is born, they receive or choose their ori in the spiritual realm, which already tells us that the self is not limited to the body. There's something deeper, something guiding, something relational. We also have the orishas, which are not simply gods in a Western sense, but forces of nature, energy, and consciousness, each expressing different qualities of existence and understood differently across lineages, which means we have to be careful not to reduce them into fixed categories. I also want to name this clearly. I'm not saying that Orisha represents modern gender identities, and I'm not mapping Western gender categories onto African traditions. What I am doing is noticing that within these systems, there is already an understanding of multiplicity and movement. This becomes even clearer when we look at Afa or Ifa, an ancient systems of divination used across West African traditions, including Yoruba, Iwe, and Igbo, communities. It is made up of 256 Odu, often understand as encoded chapters of wombs of wisdom, each containing stories, teachings, and patterns that are interpreted by trained practitioners. The purpose is not prediction. The purpose is not prediction, but alignment, alignment with destiny, spirit, and one's path in life. So, what we see here is not identity as something fixed, but life as something patterned, unfolding, and continuously interpreted. At the same time, I want to name something also honestly. Even within African traditions, there can be tension, as you can see at the right side of the slide, particularly around how gender is understood and practice. While the cosmology itself recognizes movement, energy, and transformation, the way it is sometimes taught or enforced can reflect more rigid binary expectations about what men are supposed to be, what women are allowed to become, and what roles are permitted. I don't say that to dismiss these traditions, please know that, but to acknowledge that they are lived and shaped over time, and that some interpretations have been influenced by colonial structures and social expectations. So what part so part of what I'm doing here is noticing the gap between what the system holds and how it sometimes applied, because something can be expansive at its core and still be practiced in a way that limits people. I'll say that again. I'm noticing the gaps between what the system holds and how it is sometimes applied, because something can be expansive at its core and still be practiced in a way that limits people. And I say this as someone in relationship with these traditions, still learning and navigating what it means to exist fully within them. So as we move forward, I want us to hold both truth, the depth of this cosmology and the complexity of how it is lived. Next slide, please. All righty. All right, so now I want to move us to Congo cosmology, specifically within the Bakongo tradition of Central Africa, where we find the Ndinga, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, and what is often referred to the cosmogram. This is not just a symbol, it is a central spiritual framework within Bakongo religion and cosmology. It maps out the cycle of existence, birth, growth, death, and return, and teaches that life is not linear, but cyclical. Each phrase is part of an ongoing process of becoming, where nothing is truly separate and nothing is final. Everything is in motion and connected within a larger continuum of life. At the center of the cosmogram is what is often called the Kalinga line, which marks the boundary between the visible world of the living and the unseen world of the ancestors. But this boundary is not a wall, it is a threshold. It represents a place of crossing where movement between worlds is possible, where the physical and spiritual remain in constant relationship. In this understanding, the ancestors are not gone. They are present, guiding, and active. So again, The self is not fixed or confined to the body. It exists across realms in relationship with both the seen and the unseen. And this is where Congo cosmology becomes especially important for what we're exploring today because it centers movement, transition, and crossing as neutral parts of existence. Transformation is not something to resist, it is expected. Movement between states, between roles, between ways of being is built into the structure of life itself. So when we look at in the Dekinga, we are also not looking at a diagram. We are engaging a system that understands life as fluid, relational, and continuously unfolding. And from that place, we can begin to see how identity may not be something fixed, but something that moves, shifts, and become over time. Awesome. So we're going to go to the next slide. So now I want to expand, okay, my notes, wait, go back. Uh, your slide should be on Ibu and Akan. Let me just double check. Yeah, perfect, wonderful. So I want to bring in Ibu and Akan cosmology, especially from West Africa. Ibu traditions rooted in Odinani spirituality from southeastern Nigeria, and Akan traditions from present-day Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. These systems help us further understand how the self is not seen as isolated, but deeply relational and interconnected. In Ibu Odinani, there is the concept of chi, which is understood as personal, invisible guardian spirit, or divine spark assigned by the creator. Kwa, I hope I'm saying that right as well. And that's spelled CHUKWU. To each individual from birth until death, Chi acts as both a guide and guardian, influencing a person's destiny, moral direction, and life journey. This means that who a person is cannot be reduced to what is visible. Because there is life, because there is understood as a relationship between, again, the physical self and this deeper spiritual presence. In Akan cosmology, we encounter the concept of Sankofa, a principle that teaches the importance of returning to retrieve what has been lost in order to move forward, rooted in Akan traditions of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Sankofa reminds us that the past is not separate from the present. It is active within it. Memory, ancestry, and history are not distant. They are part of how we understand ourselves now. Identity in this framework is shaped through relationship with what came before. And the self is continuously being informed, corrected, and expanded through that connection. So when we hold these traditions together across these regions and spiritual systems, we begin to see a pattern, one where the self is not fixed, but a relational, where identity is not singular, but shaped through connection, memory, and movement. The pattern. Who you are is not only about what you are in this moment, but also about what you are connected to and what you are becoming. And from this place, we can begin to understand identity not as something static, but as something that unfolds through relationship, return, and transformation. Alrighty. Well, let me see what is going on with my notes. All right. We are now going to go to the next slide. I'm just checking the chat because I couldn't see nothing. All right. I'm gonna teach, teacher. All right. The way this just shifted my vision on how I work with. Okay, let's go. This is what I love to hear. Okay, awesome. Wonderful. All right. So now I want us to expand our lens further by beginning on Dogon cosmology from Mali in West Africa and Southern African traditions, particularly among Zulu. And again, my native tongue may not pronounce these right. Charge it to my mind and not my heart. So the word is pronounced, spelled Nguni. Peoples in regions of present-day South Africa. These traditions continue to reinforce that life is not understood through fixed identities. If you notice a thread every time I keep saying, life is not understood through fixed identities, but through movement, balance, and relationship with forces that extend beyond the individual. In Dogon cosmology, the universe is understood as structured through dynamics, interdependent forces, often expressed through ideas of balance, duality, and vibration. These are not rigid opposites, but complementary forces that must remain in relationship in order for life to remain in harmony. Creation itself is seen as an ongoing process of adjustment and realignment, which means that change is not disruption. It is a part of how the world sustains itself, right? And if you do your own research, you'll start to notice how their relationship with the astrology and the stars and what it means. I really want you all to do your own investigation as well. In Southern Africa traditions, particularly within Zulu and Nguni, I'm going to try to say that. I pray I'm saying it right. Spiritual systems, we encounter practices such as, I believe it's called Yukutswa. So hold on, my daughter's here. How did the word, how do we say it? Unkusu? Yeah, I'm gonna come back to it, but I'm gonna spell it. It's Ukuthwasa, which refers to a spiritual calling into becoming a healer or a diviner. This calling is not based on a personal choice alone. It is something understood as something initiated by the ancestors, something that moves through the body and transform a person's life. Through this process, individuals may undergo shifts in behavior, identity roles, and the ways of being as they are brought into alignment with their spiritual purpose. The body becomes a site of transformation, not something fixed, but something that responds to and carries spiritual instruction. So we bring these traditions into the conversation. We see another pattern emerging, one where balance, transformation, and spiritual movement are central to understanding the self. Identity is not something you arrive at once and hold on to it permanently. It's something shaped through relationship and forces, ancestors, and the unfolding of life itself. And from this perspective, we begin to see the change, multiplicity, and transformation are not I would say divisions from traditions. They are part of its structure. They are part of how life is meant to move. We're going to go to the next slide. Say it again. Ukutwasa? Okay. Listen, if y'all watching it and I'm said it wrong, again, charge it to my native tongue and not my heart. Much respect, love, and care to many of the traditions being uplifted. Okay, let me see if I can get alignment back to, we're now going to be patterns across. So if we pause here and we look across what we've just explored, from Yoruba traditions in West Africa to Congo cosmology in Central Africa to Igbo and Akan systems and into Dogon and Southern Africa traditions, we begin to notice that these are not isolated ways of understanding the world, but systems to share certain patterns, not because they are the same, but because they are rooted in similar ways of relating to life, spirit, and existence. What we start to see is that across these traditions, the world is understood as layered. The self is understood as relational, and life is understood as something that moves rather than something that remains fixed. We see that the visible and the unseen worlds are always in relationship. That self is not limited to physical body, but exists in connection with spirit, ancestors, and destiny, and that time is not linear. This is important. Time is not linear. Time is not linear, but cyclical, moving through death. Well, let's move through birth first. Life, death, and return. We also see that transformation is not something to resist. It's something expected. And that change, crossing, and becoming are part of how life is structured, whether through Ori, Chi, the Kinga, Sankofa, or spiritual calling. Each tradition offers a way of understanding the self as something unfolding, something guided, and something in relationship with forces beyond what is immediately visible. So when we hold all of this together, what becomes clear is that these cosmologies are not centered on fixed identity as the starting point. They are centered on movement, relationship, energy, transformation. So I want to invite you and invite us to ask not what are you, but how are you moving? How are you moving? I tend to ask people that I affectionately care about, and even strangers, how is your heart? Not how are you doing? How is your heart? How are you moving? What are you becoming? And what are you in relationship with? This is important because from this foundation, we can begin to see how different ways of being, ways that may not fit into rigid categories, might already exist within these systems, even if they have not always been named in the ways we name them today. All right, we're going to go to the next slide. How are folks doing? Okay, okay. Okay, I'm getting okay. This framing of self as being and consistent change in ways. Okay. Love the critical reframe. Okay, Ashe. Okay, we yes, all right. All right. The people is liking it. All right. So in this, so if this is the foundation, if African cosmologies are rooted in movement, relationship, and transformation, then we must ask what happened when these systems encountered colonialism and enslavement. Because what we are living with today is not just difference, it is disruption. African spiritual systems were not only interrupted, they were actively suppressed, criminalized, and forced into translation through frameworks that did not share their logic. European colonial systems, alongside Christian missionary expansion, introduced ways of understanding the world that required order, hierarchy, and control frameworks that did not align with relational and fluid understanding of life. This is very important. Within those imposed systems, identity had to become fixed. That's why I want to make this distinction. The world was reorganized into binaries, male or female, sacred or sinful, acceptable or deviant. And these categories were enforced not just socially, but theologically. Theology became a governing force that defined what was considered natural, what was moral, what was outside the divine order, even that process, ways of being that once existed within systems of movement and multiplicity were recast as confusion, disorder, or transgression. What had been understood as transformation became labeled as a deviation. So, what we are living with now is not simply a difference between cultures, but the result of a historical restructuring of how life itself is interpreted. These cosmologies did not disappear, but the conditions under which they are practiced and understood were altered. And that matters because it means that many of the rigid ideas we now associate with identity includes gender are not inherent or universal. They were produced. That is the distinction. They were produced. And once we understand that, it opens the possibility to question them, not to discard traditions, but to return to more truthful, to return more truthfully beyond the frameworks that try to contain it. Let's go to the next slide. So even in the midst of disruption, these cosmology did not disappear. They were adapted. They were transformed across the Atlantic through the violence of enslavement, or people brought with them ways of knowing that could not be forly erased, ways of relating to spirit, to each other, and to the unseen. These systems had to shift form in order to survive. Sometimes they became hidden. Sometimes they became layered. Sometimes they were practiced in ways that were not immediately recognizable, but they continued. In the Caribbean and across the Americas, we begin to see the emergence of the traditions like voodoo, Santeria, and Lukumi, systems that hold multiple African lineages within them. These are not replacements. They are continuations under pressure. Within them, spirit still moves through the body, ancestors remain present, and rituals continue to act as a bridge between worlds. What changes is not the form, not the foundation. Sorry, what changes is the form. Yes, what changes is the form, not the foundation. I think I want to go to, let me see, hold on. Don't change the slide yet. Okay, work. Okay, we're still gonna stay with me. We're gonna still stay on slide about survival, adaptation, and continuity. That is where we are. I hope everyone is following. Yes, 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 yes. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Ashe. Okay. They can carry. Look at me. All right, I said that not. Okay. All right. The practices become adaptive, responsive to context, and shaped by the conditions people were forced to navigate. So when we talk about survival here, we are not talking about endurance alone. We are talking about intelligence. The intelligence to translate, to conceal, to preserve, and to continue. These traditions did not remain static. They involved. And that's evolution. It's not a break from lineage, it's a part of the lineage itself. It is evidence that these systems are alive, responsive, and capable of moving through even the most hostile conditions, which, well, hostile conditions while still holding their core. I think that's so beautiful to hold your core while experiencing, right? What it means to hold on to the core of what means home, what is your becoming. Next slides, please. So I want to talk about survival, right? Particularly Black trans survival and continuity, right? We are not talking about systems, we're talking about people because these cosmologies did not survive on their own. They were carried through lives, bodies, decision of individuals navigating conditions that were never built for them. And within that, Black, trans, and gender expansive people have always been a part of that story, not outside of it, not separate from it, but within it, moving, adapting, and continuing in ways that were not always named, but were always present. Across history, people who did not fit into rigid categories still find ways to exist, to relate, to be in community. Sometimes that meant shifting how they were seen. Follow me. Sometimes that meant shifting how they were seen. Sometimes it meant creating space in places that were informal, hidden, or unrecognized. Sometimes it meant holding roles that were not clearly defined, but still necessary for collective survival. Still necessary for collective survival. What we begin to see is that identity in these contexts was not always fixed. It was lived, negotiated, and shaped through both constraint and possibility, both constraint and possibility. And this is where survival becomes something more than endurance. It becomes imagination. The ability to exist when there is no language, or to whom's language. The ability to become when recognition is not given, the ability to move even when systems attempt to confine you. So, what we're looking at is not a story of expectation, but a lineage of people who have always been a part of ongoing work of becoming. And that lineage is not behind us, it is still here. It is still unfolding. Right? So I'm not going to talk. I'm going to pause to drink some water, but I'm going to, for the next three slides, I'm just going to let you witness it. Jamie, can you go to the next slide for voodoo? I spoke about it, but I wanted you all to be with it and read it. As you can see in voodoo community under pressure, right? Voodoo means spirit, right? And I could talk about the cosmology of where it's connected to, but I would be here all day and I want to get to some other things and I want to drink water. Right. So we see that voodoo, right? One, its spiritual embodied continues, right? Spirit moving through the body remains active practice, right? The body as a vessel for divine, right? Possession as connection, not loss of self, right? Physical manifestation of seen forces, right? Then we see the second grounding principle is ancestors remain present, as I keep saying, ancestral presence maintained across Atlantic slave trade, guidance available in daily life, lineage acknowledged in every ceremony, relationship survive displacement. That's important. Ritual as the bridge. Ritual acts as a bridge between the worlds, as I've been saying, the physical and the unseen, right? Even within the colonial and Christian framework, you can see the syncretism in that, right? Opening pathways for spirit to enter, right? Remains cosmic balance, right? Four, layered, not lost, right? It's layered, it's not lost, right? Practices are now coded because of constraint, masked, but foundations remained. It's masked, but ain't nobody gonna change what's already belongs to us. Hello? Hello? Syncretism became a strategy for our survival. Syncretism was the way that we prolong our ability to live under oppression. All right, we're going to go to the next slide. I know that's right. Come on. I'm interested in a signal link. Come on. I got the people fired up. Let's go. All right. So now we are talking about Santeria and Lukumi, living cosmology, right? Right. Particularly in Cuba. We're looking at Puerto Rico. I can go on, what we call the Americas, little turtle island. Um, and Yoruba roots, right? So across the Atlantic trade slave, we have some of those Yoruba roots or some of those Ifa and Afa divination systems, right? Okay, I see. Okay, come on, big up to Puerto Rico. Let's go. So in Orisha remains active, right? So again, Orisha rooted in Maferifu Oshun. I see the honeypots. Yes. Forces of nature, energy, and consciousness continue to move through adapted forms and new contexts, right? That's important. The second principle to be aware of in this is destiny and divination continue, right? We didn't cancel that. We didn't leave it behind. We figured out a way, right? Our five definition systems are maintained, allowing alignment with spiritual path and ancestral guidance, right? In the photo, I have to lift up Elder Iya Imani Rashid, who is a Shango priest who I've been able to work with in a lot of different priests across different traditions, whether Isheshe, Ifa, Lukumi, and so on and so on. I won't give all my business because, you don't let your left hand know what your right hand doing, and you don't let your right hand know what your left hand doing. And if you know, you know. All right. Three, empowerment as practice. The body remains the primary site of spiritual presence, ritual, and transformation. Right. Four, adaptation preserves core. External forms may have been shifted, but the cosmology of relationship, movement, and transformation remained intact. Let me tell you, if that ain't magic, I don't know what it is. To go through that level of oppression and still hold the core connected to your ancestors, the core of your memory. Thank you, Jamie. Next slide. Oh, all right, so now we're gonna move into transcestors. How are folks doing? Do we need a 5-minute break? Can I keep going? I'm just gonna wait for the chat. I don't know what's going on YouTube, but I know we love. Yes, give me 5. Ashe. Let's go on to 5. All right. Yes, for y'all know who Polly is. I'm with you. I'm ready for both. All right. I know people got different cognitive capacity. So let's just do a quick 5. And we'll be back if that's okay. And we'll come back to transcestors and we continue into this teaching.
Hello, Nala.
I am back. Is
Okay.
that 5 minutes?
I think, well, I'm not sure. I think we were about 5 minutes, but also wanted
Okay.
to
Yeah.
honor our ASL interpreters too and the time frame. So I think we're at about 5 minutes. And
Okay.
so
Yeah,
thank
let's
you.
go. Absolutely, Ashe. Um, all right. I am going to continue. Right. Thank you. Thank you. I want to play this. This is from a Black trans woman who rewrote the song.
And we can't hear the sound. Oh, I can barely hear it, but then also we can't see you either. Just wanted to
Okay. So the song said, we ain't gonna let nobody tear us apart. So it's a normally a call and response song when we're marching. She rewrote it that instead of saying I'm not gonna let nobody turn us around, right? Instead of saying that we're not gonna let nobody get in our heads. We're not gonna let anybody get in our heads. And so that's the offering as we think about our Ori. Okay, we are 40, okay, 90 minutes. All right, let's move. All right, let me get back to the presentation. All right, here we are. Da, 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 da. All right, where we are, transistors, survival. All right. All right, so when we talk about survival, I think I said this already. We talked about syncretism. All right. Perfect. Perfect. We talked about that. Yes. All right. Perfect. So as we're entering into our transcestors, right? Uh, this is the continuation of what I talk about in terms of lineage, the shift, systems to people. Abstracting cosmology became embodied practice. Individuals navigated systems that tried to erase them, right? Movement lived through flesh, breath, and survival. So who are transcestors? Black trans and gender expansive ancestors lived before and current language existed, found ways to exist outside the binary. And what that reveals is that not just history, but it's lived practice. It's evidence of becoming under constraint. We have always been here. And that survival is a part of imagination. It is embodied as truth. Next slide, please. All right, so next slide again. We're going to just jump to Mary Jones. I think this is a very important. So I want to begin with Mary Jones as a Black transgender woman living in New York in the early 19th century, whose life gives us one of the earliest documented accounts of gender expansiveness in the United States. Mary Jones lived in a time when there was no language to name her experience in the ways we might today. And yet she moved through the world in ways that affirmed her identity. Her life centers the archive through a court case in 1836, where she was publicly exposed and sensationalized, not simply because of the charges brought against her, but because her existence disrupted the rigid categories society was trying to enforce around gender, the body, and respectability. And I want to be clear about what she did. Mary Jones used what was already to her to shape how her body was perceived, creating prosthetics in order to affirm her gender in intimate encounters and in her daily life. So without going in details, you could do the research, but she basically made her becoming of her womb out of pig fat. Very creative, very imaginative, right? This was not just an act of survival. It was an economic sense, though she was not navigating, so though it was economic, right? because she was also navigating survival. She was navigating survival through sex work. And I think this is very important to start here. It was an act of bodily imagination, right? Imagine in 1836 being a different gender, trying to survive, trying to eat, trying to have food, and the world has constrained you to two binaries. Where do you fit in when you already been existing? Where do you fit in? How do you survive if you can't get a job? Sounds very familiar to modern day texts today. Policies, legislation. I wanted to start us here because we've been here. 1836. She made decisions about her presentation, her embodiment, and how she moved through the world, even under the risk of violence, arrests, and public ridicule. Nothing has changed today. What we see here is not confusion, but intentionality and an understanding that the body could be shaped, adapted, and lived in beyond what was assigned or expected. So when we look at Mary Jones, we are not just looking at someone who survived the system. We're looking at someone who actively engaged transformation at the level of the body. Her life shows us that even in the absence of language, people found ways to live into who they were becoming. And through her, we begin to understand that this is not new. It is a part of a longer lineage of people who have always found ways to express multiplicity, to navigate constraint, and to insist on their existence even when the world tried to deny it. Next slide. All right. So next we have Frances Thompson, a Black transgender woman who was formerly enslaved and living in Memphis, Tennessee in the mid-19th century. Her life becomes part of the historical record through one of the most violent events of that time, the Memphis Massacre of 1866, where white mobs attacked Black communities, killing, burning homes, and committing acts of sexual violence. Frances Thompson was among those who survived this attack. And what makes her story especially significant is that she chose to testify about what happened in a space that was not built to recognize her or protect her. And I want to be clear about what she did. Frances Thompson testifies before a congressional committee, becoming one of the first known Black trans women to speak in that kind of formal political space. She gave direct testimony about the violence she experienced, including sexual assault, at a time when both her race and her gender made her especially vulnerable to disbelief, ridicule, and further harm. And even after her testimony, she was later targeted and criminalized as in part of her because of her gender expression. She was criminalized in part because of her gender expression. So what we see here is not just someone who survived violence, but someone who spoke, who chose to speak, knowing the risk, and who continued to exist in a system that did not recognize her humanity. So when we look at Frances Thompson, we are witnessing imagination, imagination at the level of voice and presence. In many African and diasporic tradition, speech is not just about communication. It is a force that shapes reality. And in that sense, her testimony was not just recounting what happened, it was an act of claiming space, of insisting that her experience be heard, even in a system that was structured to silence her. Through her, we see that survival is not only about enduring, it is about seeking, about bearing witness, about refusing to disappear, even when the conditions are designed to erase you. We're going to quickly go to the next slide. So now we come to Mother George, a Black transgender woman who was formerly enslaved and later became a midwife in the late 19th century, living in Idaho. She was known within her community not for spectacle or visibility in the ways we might think of today, but for her role of sustaining life. See, Mother George delivered over 1,000 children, serving Black and white families, and became a trusted and essential figure within the communities she lived in. Her life shows us another way of understanding presence, not through public recognition, but through care and consistency and responsibility. I want to be clear about what she did. Mother George practiced midwifery. Which is not simply a technical skill, to be very clear, but a deeply relational and spiritual role. That is a spiritual role. She stood at the threshold between life and death, supporting the arrival of new life into the world over and over again. And in many African diasporic tradition, this kind of work is sacred. It involves knowledge of the body, of spirit and timing and community. So what we see in her life is not just survival, but the form of leadership grounded in care. She created stability, nurtured continuity, and helped sustain the very communities that existed within system that had once enslaved her. Do you hear that? Do you hear that? So when we look at Mother George, we are witnessing invitation and imagination through care. Her life reminds us that survival is not only about resistance or visibility, it's also about the quiet, consistent work of sustaining others. She shows us that care to hold, to nurture, and to support life is a form of transformation. And through her, we begin to understand that imagination is not only expressed in how we present ourselves, but how we show up for others, how we build community, and how we help life continue. Next slide, please. Thank you. I see you, Julie. I just love the affirmation. It's no shade. Y'all giving me my life. Yeah. Oh, this is fab. I'm living. I got y'all attentions. I say. So now we come to William Dorsey Swan, a formerly, again, enslaved Black person living in Washington, D.C. in the late 19th century, whose life marks one of the earliest known examples of organized, queer, and gender-expansive community in the United States. Swan lived at a time when there was no formal language for what we might now call queer or transgender identity, and yet they, she, or he claimed a space for themselves and others to exist beyond the constraints imposed on them. She, they, he also recognized as one of the first person to refer themselves as queen, a term that would later carry deep significance within Black, queer, and ballroom communities. And I want to be clear on what they did. William Dorsey Swan recognized and organized gatherings, private balls, and social events where Black people could come together and express gender, dress, and identify outside of dominant societal expectation. These were not just moments of celebration. They were intentional acts of creating space under conditions where each expression was criminalized, right? Swan was repeatedly arrested for hosting these gatherings. And at one point, they even petitioned the government for making a pardon, making them one of the earliest documented figures to engage in organized resistance around gender and sexual freedom. That is very important. What we see here is not only survival, but the deliberate creation of community and the naming of identity where language was still emerging. So when we look at William Darcy Swan, we are witnessing, again, imagination at the level of collective life. They did not only create space for themselves, they created space for others to exist, to gather, and to be seen. They show us that survival is not only individual, it is communal. We cannot miss that at a time like this. And through them, we begin to see the root of something that continues today, the creation of space where people can live beyond imposed limits, where identity can be expressed, and where community becomes a site of transformation. In that way, their life is not separate from what we now see in Ballroom. It's a part of its lineage. Next slide, please. And so let's break down the four core things the patterns that we see between these four and ancestors, right? We see the body being reshaped, the voice being claimed, care being sustained, and space being created. Moving it forward, we begin to see it takes on more visible structure in spaces like ballroom and pageantry. These are not just forms of performance. They are systems, ways of organizing identity, expression, and becoming under conditions that have historically limited all three. In ballroom, we see the body shaped through categories, the voice claimed through presence and performance, care structured through houses. Next slide. Chosen family and collective life built through shared rules, rituals, and recognition. In pageantry, we see similar principles: presentation, discipline, transformation, and the assertion of visibility in spaces that were not originally built to hold it. Both are practice of becoming, where people are not simply expressing who they are, but actively constructing themselves within community. So what we're witnessing here is not performance detached from history. It is the continuation of a lineage where identity is worked, refined, and lived through structures, intention, and collective recognition. Ballroom categories are not random. They are structured ways of engaging the body, identity, and presence. Each category asks a different question about how a person exists and moves through the world. And together, they form a system where identity is shaped through practice, repetition, and recognition. What we see in ballroom mirrors what we saw in African cosmology. The self is not fixed, but continuously unfolding. But at the same time, ballroom also reflects the realities of the world it exists within, which means it carries both possibility and pressure. If we look closely, each category holds both expression and tension. Realness is about navigation, how one is read within dominant society. But it can also reinforce the need to conform to narrow standards of gender and respectability in order to be seen as real. Face centers beauty and visibility, but often through specific aesthetics, standards that can privilege certain features over others. Body focuses on embodiment and form. Yet we also impose expectation around shape, size, and desirability. Yeah, fat phobia is real. Performance creates space for expression and release, but still operates within criteria that defines what is considered good or correct and vogue, while offering a powerful language of self-expression is also judged, meaning even freedom exists within structure. So what we begin to see in that ballroom, like traditions we've been discussing, holds both expansiveness and limitation at the same time. It creates a space for people to become, to express, to be seen, while also reflecting the pressures of visibility, recognition, and validation. And this is not a failure. It is a reflection. It is not a failure. It is a reflection of the conditions it exists within. Ballroom becomes a site where people are consistently negotiating identity, not outside of structure, but through it. And in that way, it continues the same tension we've been naming along, the gap between what is possible and what is permitted. Next slide, please. So now we come to Crystal LaBeija. What she represents is refusal, not as reaction, but as a decision. In 1960s New York, within drag pageantry, spaces that were already structured by racial bias and exclusion, Crystal LaBeija openly challenged the system. She refused the idea that she had to compete within standards that were never meant to recognize her fully. And in that moment, she didn't just speak out, she stepped out. And I want to be clear on what she did. Crystal LaBeija walked away from those pageants and went on to co-found the House of LaBeija, creating one of the first ballroom houses. This was not just a cultural move, it was structural. She created a new system where Black and brown, queer, and trans people could gather, compete, and be recognized on their own terms. What we know, what we now know as ballroom begins here, not just performance, but as a reorganization of space, value, and belonging. So when we look at Crystal LaBeija, we are witnessing imagination through refusal and creation. She did not wait for inclusion, she built something else. And in doing so, she shifted the conditions of what was possible, not just for herself, but everyone who came after. This is where ballroom moves from reaction to foundation, from being excluded to creating its own world. And as a quote, she said, she didn't ask to be seen. She built a place where seeing could happen. And now we come to Crystal LaBeija. We move, so from Crystal LaBeija, we go to Pepper LaBeija. Listen, it's been a long day, okay? I've been doing mutual aid. Stay with me, people, as I stay with myself and my Ori, Lord, who represents what happens after something is created. This is important, right? We want to represent, it represents what happens after something is created, how it is held, sustained, and structured over time. Pepper became the mother of the House of LaBeija and played a central role in shaping ballroom into what we recognize today. She didn't just participate in the space, she held it. She helped it. She recognized it. She guided it and maintained it as a living system. And I want to be clear on what she did. Pepper LaBeija built structure. She helped establish how houses function, not just as groups, but as chosen families within roles, responsibilities, and care. She helped shape the standards of competition and categories and the expectations that gave Ballroom its form. What we see through her is a shift from creation into continuity, where something that began as a response becomes a system that can sustain people over time. So when we look at Pepper LaBeija, we are witnessing imagination through structure. She shows us that survival is not only about creating space, but about maintaining it, nurturing it, and passing it on. Sankofa, right? Through her leadership, Ballroom becomes more than an event. It becomes a community, a lineage, a place where people can return again and again and again to become. Next slide, please. All right. All right, bear with me. I'm having a glitch on my end. Are we at Octavia St. Laurent? Okay, there we go. Wonderful. Sorry, y'all, my slides. Okay, so now as we come to Octavia St. Laurent, and this is where something shifts because what she brings forward is not just structure or space, but desire. The desire to be seen, to be recognized, to live in a world where your existence is not constantly questioned or denied. Octavia spoke openly about wanting a life that felt safe, beautiful, and affirmed. And in doing so, she gave language to something many people were feeling, but didn't always have the words to express it. And I want to be clear about what she did. Octavia made her longing visible through her presence, her interviews, and the way she moved through Ballroom. She named the gap between the world as it was and the world she wanted it to be. When she said she wanted to be a spoiled, rich white girl, she was not simply talking about identity. She was naming access, safety, comfort, and the ability to move through the world without harm. What we see here is not intimate in imitation. Yeah. What we see is not imitation, but translation, a way of expressing what survival required in a system that denied those things to her. So when we look at Octavia St. Laurent, we are witnessing imagination through visibility and dream. She shows us that survival is not only about enduring or building structure, it is also about imagining something beyond what currently exists and having the courage to say it out loud. Through her, we see that desire itself becomes a form of knowledge, a way of pointing towards what is missing, what still needs to be created. Next slide, please. And so now we come to Marsha P. Johnson. And what she brings into this lineage is spirit, not just belief, but live relationship with something beyond her. Marsha was deeply spiritual, often speaking about God, about faith, and about being guided, even while navigating homelessness, violence, and instability. She maintained a connection to something greater, something that grounded her and gave meaning to her existence. And I want to be clear on what she did. Marcia shows up consistently, visibly, and in service of others. She was present at the Stonewall Uprising. She supported other trans women and queer people through organizations and street level care. And she moved through the world in a way that refused disappearance. Her resistance was not only political, it was spiritual. She lived in a way that affirmed her right to exist, even when the world didn't affirm it back. So when we look at Marsha P. Johnson, we are witnessing imagination through spirit and resistance. She reminds us that survival is not only structural or expansive, it is also sustained through connection, through belief, and through the refusal to let go of oneself. Through her, we see that resistance is not always loud. It can also be steady, present, and rooted in faith. And in that way, she holds a different kind of power, one that keeps people going, even when everything around them is unstable. Next slide, please. And so now we come to Miss Major Griffin, Gracie. Ibaye. What she represents is protection, not as an abstract idea, but as a sustained commitment to keeping people alive. Miss Major has lived through decades of violence, incarceration, displacement, and systematic neglect. And through all of that, she has remained present. She has remained present, not just for herself, but for others, even in transition to the spiritual realm. Her life is not about visibility for its own sake. It's about survival over time. And I want to be clear about what she does. Miss Major has spent years working directly with women of trans experience, particularly Black trans women who are navigating incarceration, housing instability, and systematic harm. I speak between the present and past because her framework continues. Through her work with organizations like Transgender Variant and Intersex Justice Project, she has focused on the material condition of survival, food, housing, safety, and care. What we see here is not performance and not even just resistance. It is about maintenance. It is the ongoing work of making sure that that people continue to live in a world that often makes that difficult. So when we look at Miss Major, we are witnessing imagination through protection and continuity. She shows us that survival is not a moment, it is a practice. It is something that has to be sustained, repeated, and held over time. And through her, we understand that community is not just created, it must be cared for, defended, and maintained. In that way, she becomes a living bridge connecting the past to the present, reminding us that what we are talking about is not history, it is still happening. Last slide, please. Next slide, please. So we step back and we hold all of this together: cosmology, disruption, survival, and the lives we've just moved through. We begin to see not separate stories, but continuous line. A line shaped by refusal, where people stepped outside of system that could not hold them, by dream, where they imagine lives beyond what was permitted, by care, where they sustain one another in the absence of support, by structure, where they built spaces and system of their own, and by protection, where they made sure others could continue to live. What we call identity today has often been reduced to something fixed, but what we are actually witnessing is movement, movement across conditions, across language, across time. And if African cosmology teaches us anything, it is that life is not meant to remain still. It is meant to shift, to respond, to become. So what we see in Black trans and gender expansive life is not a break from tradition. It is evidence. It is evidence. It is evidence that the tradition never stopped moving. Next slide, please. All right, so I was going to do a call or response, but I think we might be at time. So we won't go to the call and response, which I want to say refusal. Y'all say refusal. So in your mind, just think that we just did a call and response. I want to bring it all together. These were not just words that you see on the last screen. This was how we lived. This is how we are still here. And this is how we continue. We are not new. We are continuations. Next slide, please. If we take everything we explore today, what we seek is not a break. It is a pattern. Refusal when the world says no. Dream when there is no language. Care when no one else would hold us. Structure when we built what didn't exist. Protection when survival had to be sustained. This is not new. This is lineage. This is what it looks like when people refuse to disappear. The tradition never stopped moving. It continues to our becoming. So as we close, I want you to reflect on those questions. I hope that I have reached your heart gaze, your mind, your posture. And I hope as you move forward, wherever you sit in the intersections of your identity, your becoming, your exploration, that you create space to hold these inner truths that are not answered, but still in process. Thank you. Ashe, Ashe, and for some, Amin, Ao, Amen, and so it is.
Thank you. Let me see if I can turn on my camera because I'm having, okay. Thank you so much, Nala. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm so sorry the presentation just went ahead and said thanks for viewing. I didn't touch anything. And so the question, like I don't know if everyone saw the questions, but I'm actually going to come back to Zoom really quickly and just say thank you so much again, Nala, for that amazing presentation. So someone did say thank you, Nala. Can we have the questions again? Um, I just wanted to give you your flowers and say thank you for this like thorough. I already got comments via email regarding the your teaching, and it was so deeply generative and forces us to think about how we're once again, like how you said, how we're becoming, and also what do we want to become, the past, present, future. And so
Oh, wonderful.
thank you. Once again, y'all,
Can
please,
I read those questions to the people?
of
Because I
course.
don't want them to leave without that. I know time be timing and life be lifing. So the three reflection questions are, what are you carrying forward? What are you carrying forward? Question number two, what are you remembering? What are you remembering? Ori will come back, right? And lastly, what are you becoming? Those are your three reflection questions.
Thank you so much for that. Now I'm just looking at the The
It's so many response. I'm trying to keep up. If I have ignored you, just know that listen, cognitively, I'm trying to keep up with y'all for
I'm
sure.
gonna save the chat for you so you can, or you know, see how much love and care, um, and just like,
Please.
I'm
Thank
so grateful that you led the first teaching. Is what a beautiful way to start and to ask these poignant and profound questions, especially now, but also to
you.
carry the strength and the continuity of our ancestors with us to the present and future. So we sadly do not have time
We
for
don't have
questions.
time. I
I'm so
know.
sorry, Nala. I wish we could, but I already know people are going to come back to this again and again. And I was in the
I'm
back
sorry,
taking
y'all. I
notes.
know y'all wanted Q&A. I'm so sorry, y'all.
Listen, come back. We'll do another,
What
listen.
was the first question? The first question to Ori was, what are you carrying forward? What are you carrying forward? And as Jamie said, this recording would be available. Just give some grace and time. Second question, what are you remembering? And the third question is, what are you becoming? Sorry, Jamie.
No, you are completely fine. Y'all, please give Nala all her flowers and continue to do that. Please give Vanna and Coffee their flowers too. And like once again, this conversation will be on our YouTube, and please return back to it again and again and again. Thank you, Nala. You are a blessing. You're brilliant. You're bountiful. Thank you for all that you do for us and our movements
I love my people.
past,
All.
present, future. So thank y'all so much. Have a great one, y'all. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you for holding it down with us through the technical difficulties. Bye.